What's going on, my dudes? This is Dustin Stelzer with Electrician U, and today we are going to talk about the Uglies book. So, what's an Uglies book? If you don't know, you should know. If you're an electrician out there and you work out in the field every day, this beast is something that you need to have like probably two of. They're so cheap. It's like 14 bucks or 10 bucks. I don't know. They're really, really cheap. Usually Home Depot and Lowe's has them. You can order them off Amazon, but like it's basically an electrical field reference manual. It's got a whole bunch of electrical codes. It actually has tables in here directly from the NEC. There's wiring diagrams for transformers, motors, start-stop stations. I mean, it's got pipe bending. There's even math that teaches you how to do trig functions and like simple algebra. But like electrical safety, life safety, tying knots.
Oh, this guy thinks he's Captain Knots. Thinks he's Captain Tying Knots. When everyone needs some knots tied, they go to him. Bullshit.
Like solar PV shit. There's so much in these books that having one that fits in your pocket or fits in your tool belt so that you carry it onto your jobs every single day with you, dude, it's a dead ringer. So if you don't have one of these and you're still just calling your manager all the time or calling your boss being like, oh, how many pieces of number 12 can I stick in a 3/4 piece of conduit? Like, you're wasting people's time, you're wasting your time. You just open this thing. If you're smart, you'll tab it out like I do. So the common tables that you're gonna be looking for your conduit fill all the time, boom, you just open it up and the information's right there. This episode is brought to you by Rogers. Rogers is a large electrical contracting company. They operate in 48 states. They're nationwide. They've got over 1,500 employees. I think there's like probably 800 service techs. So if you're looking for another opportunity and you're trying to go to maybe a little bit bigger company, check out Rogers. There is a link in the description below. Why you need one of these as an electrician is you don't always have a code book on you. So carrying one of these things around everywhere is really not practical. And I'm not saying that this isn't a replacement for a code book. What I'm saying is that a lot of the stuff that you would use the code book for, that's just general shit that you're gonna use all the time but you don't wanna memorize, like conduit fill tables for every single different kind of conduit, that stuff is in here and it's really condensed and it fits on a couple of pages. So it's a useful reference. All of that's in here and you can carry this onto a job site with you. Whereas you could leave this out in your truck or your van, and if you have some really difficult stuff that you're trying to figure out that's going to take you a while, you can go out to your truck and use it. But in the interim, you can take this thing everywhere you go. So say that we want to size the conductors that we're going to be running to a motor out in the field somewhere. We already know from the NEC that we have to use the FLC tables that are in code, and Uglies has the FLC tables in here. I've got mine tabbed. I've got the 3-phase and the single phase. So in code, the 3-phase FLC tables are going to be 430.250. Single phase is 430.248. So we're going to use the 3-phase. So what you have to do, say, out in the field, we've got this motor sitting there and it's driving some kind of, I don't know, like pulley, and it's a belt-driven motor, whatever it's doing. You should have a nameplate on that motor, and a nameplate is going to look very similar to this. This is from a transformer, but it's going to be like a stamped thing that's going to say what the voltage is and what the current should be and what phase it is and horsepower information. So let's say for this one, on this nameplate, it says that it is a 10 horsepower motor, that the voltage is 208 volts, and that it is a 3-phase motor. So it's not single phase 208, it's 3-phase 208. That's really all the information that you need to know. You don't use the FLA that's on that nameplate. It's going to say FLA. A lot of people think, oh, well, that's the amperage. That's what I need to size my conductors off of, and that's not true. You have to use the FLC charts that are in code. So luckily we pull out our Uglies. We've got an FLC chart right here. If we look down on the left-hand side under the horsepower column, we look for 10 horsepower, and we go over and try to match up the voltage. So we know it's not 115 volts, it's not 460 volts, it's 208. We go under the 208 column, we go over to the 10 horsepower, and it says 30.8 amps. So we know that that is the amperage that this motor is going to pull. That's the current that the motor is going to pull. So there's a whole bunch of different things that you can do to size your conductors based on whether or not this is going to be a continuous load, meaning it's going to run more than 3 hours. But that's the first thing that you would need to do. And if you're out in the field and you know, say you're working on like a pool and you've got some kind of pool pump or something like that, or you're at a big concrete plant and they just had a motor that blew and you had to put a new motor in. The motor just showed up and you're there to look at everything that you need for the job. That's how you would figure out, okay, that's what the amp draw is going to be. Now I can go through here or through the code and figure out what the conductor size, the overcurrent device, and all of that stuff is for this motor. One example of how you would use an Uglies book is when you're trying to size your equipment grounding conductors. This is the ground that we all call the green wire, but it is called an equipment grounding conductor in code. So there's actually a chart called the minimum size equipment grounding conductors for grounding, raceway, and equipment. So equipment can be anything. I've got a 30 amp plug, I've got an 80 amp CNC machine, a 50 amp x-ray machine. This could even be a panel. You got like a 125 amp single phase panel somewhere. A panel is a piece of equipment. So an equipment grounding conductor is talking about the ground wire that comes from or comes to a piece of equipment. And how you size equipment grounding conductors is you always look at the size of the breaker ahead of that equipment. Always off of breaker size. And this is including, again, sub-panels that are out somewhere else in the building. The ground or the equipment ground that you run to that piece of equipment is based off of the size of the breaker that feeds it, not anything to do with the wires. So in here, the table on the left-hand side is your amperage. And that's talking about the overcurrent device that's ahead of the equipment. And these are not to exceed numbers. So this example, we've got a 30 amp 2-pole breaker ahead of this 30 amp plug. So we look, there's actually a 30. We go right over from 30 and look at the copper conductors and we say it's a number 10. So this piece of equipment, we would run 10 copper for the equipment ground. That equipment ground is going to go from the ground bus to the equipment ground. Next we've got an 80 amp CNC machine. So again, you look at the equipment, you follow the wires back to the breaker, and you size the ground off of the breaker. We've got an 80 amp piece of equipment, so let's look. Oh crap, there's no 80 on our column. There's a 60 and a 100. So again, these values are do not exceed numbers. So this 60 right here means you cannot exceed it for that number 10 ground. You have to go up a column to the 100. That means you can do any number below it, you just can't go above it. So in the 100-degree column, you're going to have number 8 copper. All right, so for this piece of equipment, we have got a, jump over all those, number 8 copper conductor. So last example, same thing. We're going to look at the equipment, trace it back to the breaker, and that's how we're going to size our equipment grounding conductor to the equipment. We have a 50 amp breaker. On here, the column, again, there's no 50, there's a 40 and a 60. So we're going to use the 60 because we can't exceed the 40. And 50 is right in between 40 and 60. So we're going to go down to the 60, go over to number 10. Number 10 copper is the ground that you would run to this piece of equipment. So that's pretty easy. That's just what you would do in this one environment, but it really helps to have one of these Uglies books because you don't have to lug that huge NEC all around everywhere you go and get it all messed up. You just keep this in your pocket and let this get messed up. But I do like to keep 2 of them. I like to keep one that I can actually carry on jobs. I keep one in my visor just in case this thing disappears, which it will. And I always keep it tabbed out because then I can very easily find my equipment grounding chart. And then I can find my grounding electrode chart because they share a page. I mean, it's just like really convenient. So let's talk about grounding electrodes next. All right, so the next thing that we could use the Uglies for is right next to the equipment grounding connector, you've got the grounding electrode conductor chart. So if you're trying to size the ground that comes from your service panel and goes down to your ground rod or ground plate, whatever you're using as your actual grounding electrode, we have a conductor that goes from the ground bus down to the grounding electrode, and we call that the grounding electrode conductor. So this is another thing that you size. The size of this wire doesn't go off of the breaker size. The size of this wire actually goes off of the incoming hot wires, or the ungrounded conductors. So on this chart, it says for grounding electrode conductors, you use the size of the largest ungrounded service entrance conductors. So if, say we've got like a 200 amp service that we've got 3/0 copper coming in. So these are actually 3/0. You would go on this thing, say my largest ungrounded conductors are 3/0. So right here it shows anything 2/0 or 3/0 copper is going to have a number 4 copper ground to it, so that this conductor is going to be number 4 copper. We can do another example. Say we've got like a weird in-between size. So let's say we've got 250 MCM or KC mil, depending on if you're old school or new school, KC mil. If you look at the chart, you've got one that says over 3/0 or through 350 KC mil. So that's kind of a bigger range. So 250 is smaller than 350, but it's bigger than 3/0. So you're going to look in this whole column, that whole range, and you get a number 2 copper. So in this case, your grounding electrode conductor would be number 2 copper. So it's really easy using one of these. Again, you don't have to break out the code book, mess with all that. You've got this in your pocket, you've got it in your tools, but you have it with you everywhere you go. Instead of having to go out in your truck and like figure all of this stuff out and take a break to do it, you can do it on the job, on the fly. All right, so another thing that we can use the Uglies book for is figuring out how many conductors you can fit in a piece of conduit. So in this example, let's say that we have all conductors that are the same size. And say that we are running 2-inch EMT. Well, how many conductors can we fit in there? And that's a different answer. How many conductors you can actually fit in there is different than how many conductors you're supposed to put in there. So if you go look at the conduit fill tables, I've already got mine tabbed. Page 84 talks about electrical metallic tubing, EMT, and I already highlighted mine, so all the rest of this is for RHW or TW or XHHW, different kinds of conductors. In this instance, we're going to talk about THHN. So what size THHN conductors do we want to run? Let's say for whatever we're running, we're going to run a whole bunch of like number 2. So number 2, THHN, how many conductors can you put in there? Well, you go to the THHN section. Both of these are THHN, and it goes from 14 all the way to 750 KC mil. We're going to say we're doing number 2 conductors, and the conduit size that we're looking for up here is 2-inch. So all the way down from 2-inch, number 2, we can fit 11 number 2s. So we know inside of this conduit, we can only put 11 number 2s. We could actually fit more, but you're not supposed to fill up your conduit more than 40%. And that becomes really useful when you start putting, 90s in things, and then you've got a J box over here, and then you got like a 45 over here and another 90. So it helps to only put whatever they say in here in your conduit. So let's do another example. Say we've got a little bit bigger wire and we're trying to fit, let's do a close one. Say we just have one circuit and we're running 300 KC mil or MCM, whatever you say. Old school guys call it MCM. So we're going to run 300 KC mil copper wire, and we still have the same 2-inch conduit, but we go to the 300 on the conductor size, we go over to 2-inch, and we see we can only run 3 conductors. So that is really good to know. That's like feeders for something. That could be service entrance conductors. It could be anything, but you can only fit 3 of them in that conduit. Flexible metal conduit. That's something that we probably use all the time in commercial. Otherwise called FMC. That's the stuff that looks like MC. Looks like the outer jacketing of MC. Let's do the same thing. We're going to do THHN, and let's say we've got it's all spiral jacketed. Let's say that we've got 1.25" flexible metal conduit. So let's say that we're going to try to fit 7 number 4s, right? So we've got a black, a red, and a neutral. And we've got another black, red, neutral, and we've got our equipment ground. That's 7 conductors. So first and foremost, you may notice that there's some other things wrong with this picture as far as derating conductors go, but we're not really talking about that. We're just going to say that that's what we need to fit in this conduit. So we say, okay, we've got number 4 conductors. Sorry, I forgot to write that down. Number 4, THHN. And then we go over to 1.25", and 1.25" says that we can only do 6 conductors, right? Well, we got 7. We've got 2 neutrals, 2 reds, 2 blacks, and a ground. We got 7. So we can't use that conduit. We got to go up a size. And if you look up the next size, you can go over to where we just were, number 4, 1.25", where it says 6. Well, if we go up to 1.5", we can put 9 conductors in that of that same number 4 THHN. So if we go 1.5" FMC, we'll be all right. So it's just a lot of information at your fingertips. That's why I keep an Uglies. Is like all of this information is right here, and it's all really close to each other. Once you figure out, you know, like what your ampacity is, what type of conductors you need to run to something, you can figure out, oh, okay, well, what kind of conduit do I need to put them in? And if you're running several different size conductors, that's okay to do too. You could run, you know, like some number 8 wires and some number 12 wires and some number 6 wires all in the same conduit. So there's, you know, your percent area charts for different kinds of conduit. You got your conductor values so that you can sit and figure out what your area is in circular mills for every conductor. But it's all like, you notice how fast I'm flipping through this. All of this stuff is referenceable as long as you keep this thing tabbed. All the information is right at your fingertips. So everything that I've just covered, everything that I've talked about is all inside of here. And it's really easy to find all the information. Fits in your pocket, fits in your tools, and you can take it out on every job with you. The old way of doing this is that you'd have to bring your code book into a job site with you, or you'd have to go out and take a smoke break and go out to your truck or your van, pull your code book open, sit and flip through all the damn tables, figure out where everything is. And, you know, if you have it tabbed, that's helpful too. But a lot of times, you know, flipping through something that's got 800 pages versus something that's got like, I don't know, what is that, like 150, 200, and maybe 200 pages. It's just much easier, and everything is condensed into the most useful information that you're going to use on a very, very regular basis. One other thing that I want to talk about is that there is an Uglies phone app, and this is so badass. I have been messing around with this app, and it's better than this thing, and I think it's actually cheaper. I think from the App Store, it's like $12.99. I think this was like 14 something, but it's cheaper. You don't have to sit and flip through all the pages. You don't have to carry the thing with you as an extra thing to have, or have it in your tool belt or your tool bag. I would still do that anyways. But if you also have the app, it's in your pocket. Most of the time, you're going to have your phone on you all the time. So if you open it up, you can actually type in and search things through here that are on the app. Plus, it has like calculators, so you can put in values and it automatically calculates for you if you're trying to calculate certain sizes of things. There's videos, so if you're looking up like conduit bending or something like that, you can just watch the videos in the app that they've put in there for you. There's all kinds of extra pictures. I mean, like the app is really, really good. It's really crazy and powerful. So that's probably the best resource I would use. So if you don't want to buy this, I would at least say pay the $12.99. What's $12.99? It's like 2 days worth of fucking Starbucks that you're going to go spend anyways, getting coffee on the way to your job sites. It's really cheap. And for as much shit as it offers you, it's like getting the most badass tool, the most badass library of knowledge for $12.99, and you put it in your fucking pocket every day anyways. And the NEC also has an app. NEC's is the cost of the book. So this thing's roughly 13, 14 bucks. So the app's roughly 13, 14 bucks. The app's better than this. I think this thing is like $96 and the app is $96. And I think the app, I don't know if I'm going to say it's better than this. It's about the same. The only cool thing about the app with the NEC is that you can actually search it. Like, you don't have to sit and flip through and try to find shit, or like go to, you know, the index in the back and try to figure out where things are. You just type in like GFCI and boom, every instance of GFCI that's in the code book comes up, and you can just click one by one, figure out, you know, like, oh, I'm dealing with motors, so I should probably be in 430 around that area, and it's already all organized like that. There's a little bit of flaw to it. The search feature is not very advanced, so you kind of have to get your terms exact. You have to know punctuation if that's part of what you're searching and stuff like that. So it's coming along. It's just not as great. But I think getting these things, at least having these two books as an electrician, even as an apprentice, especially if you're like third, fourth year, you should have both of these. Because pretty soon you're going to be out on your own. You're going to be leading jobs. You're going to be running crews. And if you don't know these, you're still not an electrician. You're just a glorified laborer. You're just somebody that turns tools. So definitely get these books, and if you don't want to get the books, at least get the apps. The apps are dope. It's nice to just have all of the information on your phone in front of you and accessible to you everywhere you go. So that's it. That is my rant. If you guys have any other comments, questions, please leave them below. Appreciate your guys' attention. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.